Everyone, so good to see you. And I'm going to turn it over to Kati to do the roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Maureen Brummett. Dr. Michael Coyne.
Hi, everybody.
Dr. Margie Gillis.
Here I am. Good afternoon.
Keem Healy.
Hello, everyone.
Mr. Stephen Hernandez. Dr. Melissa Jenkins. Dr. Tammy Lucero. Fran Robanowitz.
Here.
Bianca Rivera. Susan Wachowski.
Here.
Christina Tights. And Lisa Thomas.
I'm here.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call is now complete.
All right, thank you so very much. We have a new member, so I'm actually going to turn it over to Suzanne to introduce herself. And Suzanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am having some camera issues this morning, but I'm Suzanne Wachowski. I'm from Thompson. I was appointed to the council. Not sure how I will integrate in, but I guarantee that I will do my best.
All right, well, it's great to have you. This has been an amazing group and really helped to shape and form many of important documents and steps here for literacy in Connecticut. So welcome and thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. So an acceptance of minutes. I'm wondering, are there any corrections to the September 19th minutes? All right, I don't see any hands raised or any mics unmuted. All right, so if there are no corrections, we're going to move the minutes forward as approved and shall post them on the website by taking the draft off. So thank you so much for that. Writing notes. Okay. You know what I totally forgot to do, and I apologize, is to share my PowerPoint. So while I'm doing that, if you don't mind, if we could just do a quick whip around so that Suzanne can meet each of you and you can just explain obviously who you are, where you're from. Dr. Coyne, may I start with you, and then would you call the next person to share?
Sure, I'm Mike Coyne. I'm a faculty member at the NEAG School of Education at the University of Connecticut. And I'll pass it on to Lisa Thomas.
Hi, I'm Lisa Thomas. I am a retired teacher of 38 years, and I am also the chairwoman of the Coventry Town Council.
Do you want to send it to the next person, Lisa?
Sorry, I'll send it to Fran.
Hi, I'm Fran Rabinowitz, and I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents and also a partner with the State Department in the Science of Reading Masterclass.
And do you want to introduce the next person?
Sorry. I'll send it to Margie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Fran. I'm Margie Gillis, president of Literacy How and a partner, the Connecticut Literacy Model with Dr. Coyne.
And Margie, who would you like?
Oh, sorry. Melissa, would you like to introduce yourself, Dr. Jenkins?
Good afternoon. My name's Melissa Jenkins. I serve in Bridgeport Public Schools as Director of School Improvement and Accountability, and it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Melissa, you want to pass it on to the next?
I don't know why we can't remember that.
That's okay. That's my job, to gently remind you it's okay.
Thank you. Irene Parisi.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, Suzanne. Irene Parisi, the Chief Academic Officer for the Department of Education. Great to see everyone.
You want
I got that look.
You want to pass it on?
I think Dr. Lucero has not had a chance yet to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Lucero. I'm the superintendent in Stanford. And I can't see because I'm driving, so I'll let someone else pick the person who's next.
I think Dr. Brummett we have not yet done, correct? So Dr. Brummett, do you want to introduce yourself to our new, one of our new council members? Yeah, she could be driving as well. Is there anybody else who we have not had introduced?
You didn't, I'm last,
Kim!
I guess. Yes, hi, everybody. So I'm Kim Healy. I'm from Wilton. I've been here, I think, since I missed the first one, the first meeting when we first got started. I've been here ever since. I'm a selectman in Wilton, and, you know, I've just been a great engaged committee to be on. So welcome, Suzanne.
Hi, it's Maureen. My apologies. I'm in my car with a low battery, but I'm from Newington, a superintendent, and look forward to our meeting today. Thank you. And I can't see my screen to know who has not gone, except maybe Irene Parisi.
As much as I would love to go a second time, I'm all set. Thank you, Dr. Brummett. Melissa Hickey, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you so much. And Suzanne, I believe, as you know, I'm Melissa Hickey. I am the director of the Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success. And as I said, we're just so pleased to have you be a part of this group. So thank you so much. These are the council.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Suzanne.
No, that's okay. I just was saying thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for introducing yourselves to me. I appreciate that.
All right, so these are the council norms, and as you can see, this is something that we established a while ago. We do the majority of the meetings online. It seems virtually, it seems like it's easiest for especially our superintendents who join, as they are frequently needed, and it's hard to drive long distances for meetings. So these are the council norms about being virtually, about pausing, being open, allowing constructive silence, sharing the air, listening actively, and assuming those positive intentions and respecting all perspectives. So today, we're also going to, well, I'm sorry, so for Suzanne as well, our legislative responsibilities, we are in legislation, the council, and the responsibilities legislated there are to consult with the director, who's currently me, assisting and informing the activities of the center, facilitating communication in the field and dissemination of information, tools, services made available by the center, developing and publishing annual goals for the center, and meeting at least every 2 months. Now, the goals, we've been working on the goals. First, there was one document that we were working on, which was the strategy. From the strategy, then blossomed the goals. This is the time frame for working on those goals. You can see that the council completed the strategy and it was posted, and then started drafting the goals. And we did request across the State Department of Education feedback from various departments, as you can see here. And then we sent it to all the council members for their review. Now, what we'd like to do is discuss and then vote on moving forward the draft of the Center for Literacy Research and Reading Success, Connecticut's 2023-30 K-3 statewide literacy plan. The next stop would be the Commissioner's office. So were there any corrections or questions as a result of your reviewing the document that was sent to you after our last meeting? If so, raise your hand, unmute. And Kateria is taking notes as well. All right. Well then, if then there are no corrections or questions, then we'll move to show these to and share them with the Commissioner's office. Great. All right. Thank you so much. We don't even need to vote, I guess, as there are no corrections. Okay. Moving right along today. That's very exciting. We worked on those for a long time and we had a committee that was really devoted to helping as well. So thank you so much for that. That's great. All right, moving along here. So the waivers, I'm sure that there's been a lot of communication questions out in the field and in Connecticut around the waiver process. Suzanne, you may not be aware, but there is legislation. The legislation does state that the local and regional boards of education must use one of the approved Connecticut programs or curriculum models for K-3 literacy. Part of the legislation did allow for districts to request a waiver. A waiver, we created this process well, I'll share it with you in the slides, but together with superintendents, we did create this process. So on December 15th of 2022, districts were notified of the waiver application. In February, we had 85 districts submit a completed application. 2 districts did withdraw, which left us with 83 in total. The legislation is very clear that it needs to be aligned to the components of reading, of scientifically based, evidence-based reading, as well as including data from K-3 students and a strategy to address the reading achievement gap. We worked closely with, once again, CAPS, Fran, superintendents, to actually create the waiver process. So this detailed description, including a compendium of documents, each district submitted, some were hundreds of pages, and the reviewers, we went through each and every page and all the information submitted, which I will explain a little bit more to you. We did create a website or web page that was exclusively devoted to the waiver application process so that districts could have questions answered, could see the application. We posted there the tool that was utilized as well as a video about the tool. So here's this so far. I'm going to go to the next page. All right, so March to April, the State Department of Education reviewed every waiver application submitted through the Qualtrics system to ensure that they included the information mandated by legislation. Now, there was one area in which we did have to adjust because the legislation does state that the assessments have to be from one of the approved assessments, but there was a kind of the timing did not match up for districts. So we did allow these waiver districts to submit data that did not come from one of the approved assessments. We did notice that some districts submitted their application multiple times. When I asked some people why they did that, I think they were just nervous. And they said, we just want to make sure you got everything. So a few districts did submit multiple times, and each of these submissions were checked to ensure that the documents were actually duplicates and not additional materials. So then in May, the State Department of Education partnered with PCG to assist in establishing the review process. Now, PCG is an organization who's worked with us for many years on ReadCon and professional learning for teachers and administrators. And we felt by partnering with them, not only could they lend us their expertise in reading and assisting with this application process, but the data and the information that came from the process would then be used to drive the professional learning of ReadCon and to tweak and add to it based on what the field was needing in terms of information. So the process included creating the waiver application review tool, which, like I said, we do have posted. This tool follows exactly the legislation and the requirements of the legislation, as well as the application and the questions that were asked in the application. Originally, the superintendents did not want to have like the formal kind of rubric process. So what the application actually included were questions, guiding questions, so that districts could use these questions to assist in their compendium of documents. They didn't have to use the questions, but many did. The tool was, as I said here, developed to align to those guidelines, to the guidance, and to the legislation. So that was created in May. Then June to August, we started the review with PCG. As the waiver review process began, it was revealed that the majority of the waiver applications did not include the publishers' names or the dates, the years of the programs. So for example, it may have said foundations, but it didn't say who was the publisher of that or the date of the actual program. Many programs, when they're developed, then get updated through the years. And it was important to know specifically which documents or programs the districts were referring to, and looking at the compilation of all the different programs that they submitted. So we did send out a form asking all the districts to please clarify this information. Some districts did have that information in there, but the majority, like I said, did not. So they supplied us with that missing information. And then the first review was completed by August 31. I say the first review because then what happened in September and October is that the superintendents requested one-on-one meetings with the reviewers and with myself to go over their waiver and be able to ask questions or clarify anything that they felt needed to be clarified or give us updated information. So PCG and I conducted 4 webinars. Each of the webinars explained the waiver tool and the process. Then October 23 to 31, we conducted 76 individual one-on-one virtual meetings with those districts who requested a one-on-one meeting. Those districts who did not specifically request, I did then reach out multiple times to ensure that they actually did not want the one-on-one. And just made sure that everyone who wanted a one-on-one was ensured a one-on-one. Prior to this meeting, the feedback that was collected during the first review was shared with the districts. Each of those feedback were individualized to the actual waiver that was submitted. So there were questions that were asked based on each of the waiver applications. So that is the process to date. What's happening now is that I'm working with PCG. We're finalizing those waiver tools. The tools will then be sent to the State Department of Education to go to the Commissioner's office for review. Districts were notified that they will be hearing back by December 1, 2023. So there's the waiver review process. Are there any questions? I saw Lisa's hand go up first and then Kim.
I just want to thank you for taking the time to conduct those one-on-one meetings. I'm sure that was very helpful. I know there were a lot of questions regarding the waiver process. So thanks. I'm sure that took a lot of time.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Learned a lot. So I'm very appreciative for the time. I appreciate the districts. They really looked at the questions, and some people did presentations with PowerPoints. Some people spoke. Some people showed documents, but they were all very prepared, and it was really interesting. It was very interesting. So thank you, Lisa. Kim?
I mean, I was going to start off with what Lisa said as well, because I think, everyone that I've spoken to, they're very, proud of the what they've been using to date, and obviously, want to be able to voice their, have their say, I guess, with you on support, hopefully getting support for what they're offering or what changes they can make without maybe making a big move to a whole new program. So by December 1, that's, quite soon. I mean, based on your estimation, I mean, are you seeing possibilities of waivers being granted or not?
I've been really good up to this point to not give anything away. So if you don't mind, I would like to continue to do so until districts are notified in December. It's funny because when people ask a question like that, if I've gone to scratch my nose, people are going, it's a sign. It's a sign, and Melissa is saying that our waiver was not accepted. So for right now, what I will say is that it was always our intent to look at the waivers to find additional programs and curriculum models that we could put onto our website and then have as approved Connecticut materials. So the intent has always been to grow that list, when looking at that science of reading and the components of that. So if you could just hang on just a little bit more, more.
So I'm guessing by December 1, is it going to be just like the SAT where someone's going to open up an email and be like, surprise, you were granted a waiver, or no? I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's not like that.
It will be communicated through email in a letter.
And then will the council be notified as well on that day, I guess, if there are programs going to be added to the 7 that were already previously approved? Because that's kind of what I think places are looking for. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Of course. And then Fran?
I think Kim just answered my question. I wondered how that would happen, whether or not you would be adding programs, because my guess is some of this is a compendium, correct, of programs. So how would that work, Melissa? One program standalone might not be
correct.
The program. How would you do that?
The compendium would be posted as the approved curriculum, because then the compendium would include all 5 components as legislated.
Okay.
it would make that comprehensive core.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I get into the next steps of what will happen with the waiver process? Whoop. My notes fell apart. Okay, I'm moving on to the next. All right, so you know that internally, we really ensured that there was calibration among and between the reviewers. I did share before that the reviewers were very highly skilled. If you want to look again, I did end up posting that to the website that I was talking about, so you can see what some of their accolades are. But we did ensure that the reviewers understood the tool. They did much like we used to do with the writing prompts. I'm sure so many of you remember, right? So we do an internal, we each do one and then look at each other's to ensure that the scoring is consistent across and really making sure that there's consensus across. There were random quality assurance checks, as well as, like I said, those calibrating meetings and scoring alignment all throughout the process. So the next phase for implementation, this once again is according to the legislation. So for those districts who were granted a waiver, then for the school year commencing July 2024, July 1, and each school year thereafter, they shall implement a comprehensive reading model or program other than one of the ones posted, the Connecticut approved. Like I said, through this process, we are hoping that these will then become part of the approved list. And then everyone shall have it fully implemented by July 1 of 2025. And then for those who are not granted a waiver, they have for the years of 23, 24, and sorry, Maureen got back in. Okay. So for the school years commencing July 1, 2023 and July 1, 2024, a local or regional board of education that has not been granted a waiver and is not fully implementing one of the approved or the fully comprehensive models or programs shall begin partial implementation, and then they too fully implement by July 1 of 2025. And then I did put the act here as it is the newer legislation that was passed last spring. And I see Fran's hand up and Margie.
I apologize. That's should be a lowering. Sorry.
Okay. No, it's fine. Margie?
I raised my hand before you got started on this next go round, and my question has to do with something that you went over earlier. So let me let you finish what you're doing now, and then we can go back.
No, it's fine because the next is what I get into as support. So please.
Okay, if you don't mind, if you could go back to page 6 in the PowerPoint.
My pages here online are not marked. Can you just tell me what's?
It's the slide that, yeah, keep going. Wait, that was it. Next one.
The goals?
No, the next one. That's
this one here.
December 15th. Yep, you got it.
Okay.
So I had gone through these slides before a meeting today, and the question I have is about the completed K3 reading data template.
Yes.
And when you click on that, it brings you to a spreadsheet that shows cut scores for when a student should be identified as substantially deficient.
Yes.
And then it lists a number of assessments with the cut scores.
Yes.
And it's a little confusing because I just wasn't sure what that was. It listed some assessments that I don't believe are on our list of approved assessments. And
Correct.
so I just had questions about that. Again, I don't want to take,
Mhm.
mess with your flow,
Right.
Melissa, and what you're doing, but I just did have a question about that.
Sure. So with the assessments, because not all districts have been mandated to use one of the assessments, and because those who have been mandated, the timing didn't line up, we couldn't, I guess there was a request from districts that they could then send in the data they're currently using from the assessments they're currently using. So we allowed that to happen. In some cases, we did not have cut scores on some that they were sending to us, and we asked them for that information and to include that information.
Okay. So the list of approved assessments that went into effect on July 1,
Mhm.
that isn't a policy that applies to all the districts in Connecticut?
Correct. So two things. One, July 1 was, there wasn't enough time for all districts to then put in place one of the new assessments. And we didn't want to penalize districts for that. And two, yes, the way that the legislation is written, it does not actually mandate that all districts have one of the approved assessments in place. What I do have to say, though, is especially with these waiver meetings, many districts have moved over to the approved assessments. And as a result, they were so excited because they actually were seeing changes in practice. So for example, if they were putting the DIBELS into place, they were then noticing that they needed to add to their phonics phonemic awareness instruction, and were doing so. They were changing their practice as a result of using one of the approved assessments. So that was really exciting.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
good news.
Yeah. That was one of
Okay,
the
thank you
trends
for
across.
clarifying. The PDF that I have does say all local and regional boards of ed, but I mean, I don't have the policy in
Yeah.
front of me. So, all
I
right,
think the intent of the law was to do that, but the way the law is written, it does not say that specifically. So,
okay. Well, thank you.
yep, no problem. Any other questions? Okay, so then I'm going to move along. So I explained the waiver process and where we are to date. What I also want to share is some exciting news about all of the different supports that we have been able to provide. As you know, we've talked about these in the past, and some I just wanted to reiterate. So we've had two funding sources that have been really exciting. First, as you know, the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus was able to designate funds for us to use across Connecticut to support the legislation. So approximately $21 million went into schools, districts, charter schools to support with the ARPA funds, the Right to Read funds. They may use the funds, and districts have been using the funds to purchase the approved assessments and to purchase something that's on the Connecticut Program and Curriculum Models approved list. For those who are waiting to hear further waiver results, they will be moving forward with their grants as well. They're just waiting to see if their materials will become Connecticut approved, or if they will need to then use the funds to purchase something on the list. So they could use it to buy the actual programs and materials, licenses for students, and they could use it for professional learning. We have talked a lot here about how the success of a new program is not just by having the program put in place, just boom, we have a program. It's really important that professional learning and supports are provided to teachers and to administrators to assist them with this implementation and the rollout. So these monies can be utilized for that as well. So that's one, the ARPA funds. And then the other is the ARP ESSER small town. So it's very important to the commissioner that we continue to support our small towns. Often their calculations, because their numbers are so small, they don't get the funding that other districts are getting. So we were able to take almost 4.6 million in ARP ESSER funds and devote them to towns under 1,000 students total. So they got additional funds to do the same. What's a little different is that small towns with using the ARP ESSER funds, two separate pots of money from the federal government. The ARP ESSER funds, we were able to allow, they could use it for substitute teacher fees if they had a professional learning. They could pay for the subs. They could actually pay for a position if they had enough funds or part of a funds to do that, and stipends if they were working on curriculum work around the new assessments and the new programs and materials or curriculum. So any questions about the funding that has been provided to date? Lisa?
Yeah, thanks. I would be curious at some point to see a list of the towns that received funding and the amount that they received.
Sure, I can send that to you. Yep.
I'd like to see the definition of small town.
Sure. Yep. We have that in the grant guidance. That's posted too. I can send that.
Also, so not related to the funding, but once the list of waivers is released, I'd like to see a list of the towns, the districts that received waivers. And it would be great for us to know, and I think this was said before, but it would be helpful for us to know what it is those districts are utilizing who receive a waiver. And then I just have a concern in the ARP ESSER dollars to small towns, the fact that it includes permission to use it for positions. You know, when ARPA first came out in all its various forms, one of the things that was understood was to avoid using those dollars for ongoing operating expenses. And we see headlines now about some districts that are in trouble because they did use those dollars for ongoing operating expenses like hiring teachers. And now they have big budgetary shortfalls. So I'm just wondering what the philosophy is behind including that in this guidance.
Sure. So what small town districts or small towns have shared is that, you know, as you say, they don't have as many funds. These funding, it can actually, there are certain grants that you're not allowed to use those funds in if you've already used other funds to cover it, but that's not the fact here. So what they could actually do is if you have a coach and you want to use these funds to pay for that coach, then for the time until December of 2024, they could use those funds in another place. So it's really up to the towns and the districts as to how they want to spend these funds. You know, I can't speak to if it puts them into some sort of a deficit. You know, once again, this is their money and it is their budgets. I feel that whenever you have a change, and we've talked about this before, so here is a change in programs, in curriculum, you're going to need to have people that can then help and support with those changes. So some people will be using their funds toward a coach who can help with this change. Once again, to me, it's up to districts to decide, but because of the ARP ESSER funding, we were able to give them this allowance and have them make that decision about how to use their funds. So far, the ones who have been putting forward their grants, who have finished them, they have not yet asked for this. The majority has been going into materials, but it doesn't preclude them from others doing so.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, any other questions or comments? Okay. So then moving right along, we're really moving fast today. So supports, not only have we at the State Department and our legislators provided funds and our commissioner, we've also been providing professional learning. So current professional learning includes the literacy model strategy that Dr. Coyne spoke about in one of our meetings before, that really focuses on the alliance districts and the opportunity districts. We have ReadCon that we've referenced before, and also, like I said, with PCG. ReadCon, we're supporting right now 500, almost 500 teachers and administrators in professional learning around the science of reading. This is virtual professional learning, and there are supports throughout for those literacy leaders who are helping the work of the team to better understand what the actual components of reading entail and include. And then the Science of Reading Masterclass, which you've also heard Fran and I talk about in the past. These are not finalized yet because the contracts are not finalized, but I did want to give you a peek into some of the supports that we've been working on. In some cases, back last year in December, we've been working on these contracts. So we have 2 contracts that are moving through the pipeline now. One is for TNTP and the other is Hill for Literacy, to support districts with the program adoption process and their implementation plan. These 2 entities were picked by Massachusetts through a rigorous RFP process, and we were able to utilize that process when we were then going into our own to decide who could provide supports to districts based on choosing what is the right program or curriculum model for them and how to go about implementing that. We also have kicked off very successfully the ARPA Right to Read statewide leadership training. All districts who are taking the ARPA Right to Read grant funds must participate once a month in training around creating a literacy plan and then getting some professional learning that they can then utilize to kick off and use in their districts with their teachers. In addition to this, there will also be supports for coaches. So Margie, I know this wasn't scripted, but do you want to talk a little bit about the coaching supports that are going to be coming from the leadership training? Oh, but you need to unmute, please.
Yep, so happy to do that.
Thank you.
In addition to the leadership training and the science of reading professional development that the Hill is providing, Literacy How was invited to put together a series, a 10-part series, 2.5-hour sessions once a month to support people who are coaches, literacy coaches in their districts. So they could register for this class, which started last week. Again, it's a 10-part series, and we'll have another series beginning in February. And it's really using a book called Student Focused Coaching, which is a book that was co-written by Jan Hasbrook and Daryl Michael, to help coaches understand what the process is around data. So data is at the heart of the process, coaching process. And we have 30 people, I believe, that engaged in the professional development last week. Christine Cohen is Vice President of Literacy How, and she's conducting the series. And we had a great group of people participate. And as I say, it'll be a 10 session series over the course of the next 9 to 10 months, ending in June. So I guess it's really a couple days a month to get us to the end of the school year.
And once again, this is all free to districts, and they've been taking up on the opportunity, and we've been hearing some really positive reviews from the experiences. Right now, overall, we have about over 160 districts who are registered, and there is another wave that will be coming in January, February. So there are a few districts who will be signing up for that time as well. Then we're also looking to continue the WestEd support of the network improvement communities. We started that last year with some of our small districts and assisting them with the science of reading and developing a small community, and then narrowing in on something they felt needed to be changed and getting support in going around doing that, one of the structures in place. So we'd like to continue that work because last year it was a grant. So these are, once again, things that we are working on to provide supports to districts, those who either need support with implementation, need support with developing some sort of a cycle of improvement, and then also working on their literacy plans. So all exciting stuff. Any other questions before I go to the next?
Just one question, Melissa. I see the K-3 literacy model curricula and program adoption process. Is there the K-3 literacy curriculum, the model has been released?
Oh, no, I'm sorry if that's confusing. It's not related to the work of the other legislation by having the K-3 curriculum. What we can do is when Irene jumps back in, then you can have a conversation and ask her about that. Is that what you're talking about? The one that she and Dr. White are working on?
When I saw literacy model curricula, what does that mean?
Those are approved programs, the approved curriculum models and programs. So helping them with the adoption process and implementation process. Massachusetts has been doing this for a few years now. They've been working here, like you can see, with TNTP and Hill for Literacy. Districts have actually had to contract with them individually, but we're not doing that. We're doing it overall. Districts who are interested will go to some webinars and then express their interest, and then will be chosen to do this work. Maureen, do you have a question?
Yes, my question is, you had mentioned 160 districts are already using these consultants. That means pretty much everybody. Do they have capacity? What is their charge? Can they only work with districts who are going to adopt the current state approved models, or will they be able to gear up for any of those that are approved after the December 1 decisions? In other words, what is the capacity if 160 districts are already using them?
Sure. So I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. The ARPA Right to Read statewide leadership training that is doubled up with the ARPA funds, that's the statewide leadership training that has over 160 districts signed up to date. The others, we do not yet have contracts, so no work has been going forward yet. And yes, anything that has been approved through the waiver process will become the Connecticut approved materials. So Connecticut approved programs, Connecticut approved curriculum, model curriculum, or curriculum models. And then districts will be able to apply for the TNTP, the Hill, and the WestEd work. But right now, the only one that's up and running is the ARPA Right to Read statewide leadership training, the one a month, where they're getting assistance in writing their literacy plans. Excuse me, Fran?
Just so UConn, Hill for Literacy, and Literacy How are working with 160 districts?
Yes. Yes, and eventually it's going to be every single district that is taking the ARPA money. Those who
Okay.
who want to use the ARPA funds will then have to be part of this leadership training.
Got it.
Yep.
Just a clarifying question real quick.
Oh, sure.
How many districts? I thought there were 169 districts in the state.
Well, including our charter schools, we have 180.
Okay, so the vast majority, so there are only
Yes.
80 that haven't currently signed up.
About 20 something right now.
Okay.
Last week, I want to say it was 30 and some more have signed up, but once again, there's a whole nother wave coming. There's 3 waves. So
Right,
one
right.
started September, right? One started, Mike, when did the other one start? Was it just November? I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. It's a blur. And then another one will be starting in January, February.
So when they're working, Melissa, I just want to be clear on it. When they're working with the districts, they're working with all schools in the district?
District leadership teams.
With the teams, okay.
Correct. Right. Those districts that participated in the masterclass did not have to participate in this training, but we're finding the majority are. So they have signed up to do this, to create and look at their plan. And then for the professional development in the afternoon that they can then roll out, and then to get the coaching support that Dr. Gillis was talking about.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. Yep. Because it's the same plan that we're using across the board. The consistent literacy plan. All right, any others before I go to the next slide? Okay. All right, so basically we are at the end, believe it or not. Like I said, today we were quick and efficient. Our next meeting is January 16th. And as you requested, when the waivers go out, the information about the waivers go out, we will include you all on information so that you can see the list of those who have, so those who have received waivers, those who not, those that have been added to the list, etc. We'll share that information with all of you. Yes, Maureen, Dr. Brummett.
Thank you. When all that information goes out, will it include any programs that are approved, like the details of the programs that are approved that are above and beyond the state approved thus far?
Could you repeat the question just so I make sure I understand what you're asking?
Sure. So
Yeah.
on December 1st, when everyone gets
Yep.
notified of their status for
Yeah.
those reading programs that are now added to the state approved list, not the ones that are currently on it, but the ones
Got it.
that will be added, how would a district get access to those newly approved programs?
Sure. So I'm anticipating the superintendent updates that go out a couple times a week from Anne Marie. And then also it'll be posted to the website where we have that all listed, all the approved programs. Also, I have a listserv that has, I don't know, over 400 people on it by now. So the information goes out that way as well.
Okay, and it'll be like detailed, because I imagine for some districts, it might be a compilation of resources versus the state approved programs, which are more like a particular publisher's program.
Right, yes. So, yeah, Fran did ask something very similar. So if someone submitted a compendium, a group of programs, and that group of programs work together in a comprehensive way in which all of the legislative requirements and the science of reading are addressed, then yes, that will be posted as a group.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem. Anything else?
Melissa, I
Dr.
just wanted to
Coyne.
jump in and, yeah, I just
Sure.
wanted to say how great it is to see all the different efforts from the state and the center supporting the schools and districts across Connecticut and moving forward with this work. So I really appreciated all those slides that talked about all the supports and efforts that are going on. So, and I know how much work that is for you and your team and everyone else at the Department of Ed. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thanks to all the districts too. So we have really been trying to meet with all the districts to either support with the grant and or with the waiver. So thank you so much to all the districts and charter schools who have accepted our requests for meetings to help support. We've met with pretty much probably 75% of all the districts so far, which 80%, which has been pretty cool.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been pretty cool. Like virtual meetings, you know. All right. Well, thank you all once again. Always appreciate your input. Suzanne, any wonderings you have before we adjourn?
Thank you so much. This was great to catch up a little bit and to see what you've already done. I'm so sad that I missed the first few meetings that you had. But have we come a long way since the 90s when my son was a dyslexic in school and they didn't use the term to where we're using scientific-based programs now. It is amazing. So it's good to see this kind of work being done and implemented in our school systems.
It is exciting. It is. And like I said, too, you know, having the meetings across the board with districts who either asked for waivers or didn't ask for waivers, people are really leaning into this legislation. They are really learning a lot. Some people had no idea what they didn't know. And have learned so much about what they didn't know and what they need to do instructionally to tweak things. Like I said, many of the districts who have put an approved assessment into place have noticed that their instruction needed some adjustments and added materials specifically to address what was not being addressed, and then seen an improvement in the kids as a result of it. So the legislation, not only the newest, but the legislation that has been in place, it is making a difference. It really is. And like I said, I'm finding that people are very open to the new information. Some districts are just kind of waiting to see what ends up on the list. Others have already started using the money to pilot materials. They've been working together. That's another contract I'm working on is having districts who are using like materials, getting together and working together on implementing the materials. So we're really trying to provide supports to help with the changes. But overall, like I said, I mean, it's amazing. The majority of the districts, they're just so excited about making these changes and seeing how much what they've done already has made a change. So it's really exciting.
Wonderful.
Yes, yeah. All right, well, thank you all so much. Once again, your support is greatly appreciated. And we'll see you all on January 16th.
Thanks, Melissa.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Nice to see everyone.